is October 7th. And, it happened here in Halifax. There was a huge rally planned by a Free Palestine group. They decided to cancel because they were getting quote unquote threats of violence. And I was like, wow, surprise, surprise, wonder why. But there were some rallies across the country that still transpired on October 7th. And there was one that transpired yesterday where it ended with people burning and tearing the Canadian flag. And for me personally, I don't know, I've never, when it comes to the burnings of flags, I've never been viscerally annoyed or frustrated by it. I'd see the American flag burned, a lot in protests or whatever. And you're just like, yeah, okay, that stinks, but I'm not bent out of shape about it. But for some reason, this one really hit home for me. I had a visceral reaction to this one where I was actually upset by it. And I was like, oh, that didn't feel nice. That felt disrespectful. I think this one's a little different just because they've been very clear that they want to take out Canada. And I wish I could say I was exaggerating, but that's just the reality. So from your perspective, how does a politician deal with this? How do they handle it? How do they go about it? We see what the Liberals are doing, and they're being very cautious because technically that's their voter base. But the Conservatives are coming out outright, helps that Melissa Lantsman has a high position in the shadow cabinet. They're both taking pretty much two different stances on this. What do you think, if you're a politician and you're seeing this transpire, what are you doing to calm things down among your constituents?
I think, as a country, we have inevitably let this go on for far too long. And I don't mean in the sense of, protesting, because that is a right. People have the right to protest. But at the same time, it's not just happening, on the far left or whatever. It's getting to the point where people more and more want to push their limits and see what they can get away with. But at the same time, I personally stand back and almost feel like it's putting cracks in our democracy, and the foundation of our democracy. I get in an argument with PPCers where they say, well, I want absolute free speech. And it's like, well, you have a right to speech, but you don't have a right to not face consequences. But it almost makes you wonder, but why? Don't get me wrong. I don't think we need to bring in legislation to further crack down on Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it is becoming more and more concerning that people want to be able to just go online and just say some of the most atrocious stuff because they just want to be able to do it. And it's the same with the burning of the flag. Some people might say, well, it's just a material thing. It's just, an inanimate object. It's not actually a living thing. But at the same time, to me, it's a symbol. It's a symbol of something much more than that. Because when I, even as a First Nations person, I walk in two worlds inevitably. And it's tough to walk in both those worlds. But at the same time, my great grandpa fought in the war. He was a First Nations man, a Cree, that fought in the war and came back to a country that didn't even recognize him as a full human being, but he still fought for the foundations of the democracy that we live in today. And I feel like as a society, we're becoming so comfortable in just existing and testing our limits, where I'm scared to see where that goes, because we used to be, much more orderly almost. And now it's I don't know. To me, that's scary. I don't see any benefit in watching people burn the Canadian flag in the street and say things like "death to Canada." I don't see the positive in that. And, if my ancestors suffered tremendously under government rule, but now walking in those two worlds where I respect the average Canadian citizen, I respect the people before me that suited up and went to war for our country. On Remembrance Day, I'm waking my kids up and I'm like, let's go. We're going to Remembrance Day ceremonies. I believe we all have a part to play in the foundation of our country. And I think that if you're playing an active role in trying to dismantle democracy or dismantle the safety that Canadians have a right to feel, I don't respect that.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And I do appreciate, again, the perspective you're coming at it from too, where, you have a different cultural background, but you still respect the foundations of what we currently have and what we've grown to be able to be grateful to have. And that was kind of how I felt too, where, it's nationalism has become a filthy word. I personally would like to take that term back, of it being a positive thing, just having pride in people who you share a country with, being able to take pride in the laws that we have here, where, yeah, we're not perfect, but we're still striving to be better, where we can give opportunity to people to be able to start a business, to be able to make a living for themselves and their families, not to be subject to so much government red tape. And now here I go, sound like a Pierre Polyev commercial, but that's just kind of, you know, how I feel. So when I saw this, I was like, oof, I'm not having any pleasant things that are coming to mind right now. Like, this one's really frustrating me. And then to see Parliament transpire and, you know, Pierre Polyev ask Mélanie Joly, the foreign affairs minister, are you gonna, you know, denounce anything that's being said about the Israeli people and the things that are being done in the streets? And she kind of just, we still stand with Israel people on October 7th, and didn't answer the question. And I was like, yikes. Yeah, like that was like a pretty, like, we can all disagree, like we can all agree that that's a bad thing. And so for, I think it was Pierre Polyev, his exact quote on that day from the Parliament was, Mélanie Joly continues to pander to Hamas, is what he said in Parliament, which got him, essentially the speaker told him that you can't ask any questions today after he said that, because he wouldn't take it back. I know, like, there's this line that happens of, what's a decorum that happens in the House. It's like, did that cross the line of decorum? Or like, what, like, from your perspective, someone who's in politics to a degree, like, what was crossing the line with that?
Yeah, so I'll come back to that. I want to respond to your point about the nationalism, because I don't even think we need to, you know, apply terms to basic human decency and how you act as a citizen of Canada or anyone, you know, like I'm having a really hard time saying that that's what it is, because it's not like any of this is new. You know, I maybe we'll get into the conversation around the church burnings, but like this doesn't need to be overcomplicated, and we don't need a bunch of theorists to come in and pick an issue like this apart. At the end of the day, it is illegal to light a building on fire and vandalize it, plain and simple. Just don't do that. And then add the religious component into it, that this is a place, and don't get me wrong, this was no longer being used as a church. So that's important to the context, because do I know whether or not these people knew it was a church yet or not? I don't know. Nobody actually knows whether or not these people knew it was a church when they burnt it down. So there's that issue people are picking apart. But number one, don't vandalize and burn down buildings. That's not going to help your cause. Number two, especially don't do it if it's a religious institution or place of worship. Again, don't know if this was still being operated as a church, but just don't. Like, if you think that's going to help and bring unity together and everyone's going to be on your side, like, you don't get through things by being destructive like that. You just don't. You're attacking an entire population of the people. That's not going to solve anything. And I don't agree with that in any capacity. I think the minute you start vandalizing and burning things, it's just, I have no use for that.
That was electric, wasn't it? Well, we enjoyed it. Hope you did too. If you did, you can check this video out here to the top right corner, right near my window. Get over. There it is. There it is right there. And if you liked that, you can also check this one right here. We love you. Have a good one. Peace out.